Okay, welcome along to the webinar. Thanks for waiting a few minutes there. For those of you who arrived early, give you time to start your lunches and things like that. Okay, the title to today's session is Practical Initiatives to Support Your Company's Governance Strategy Goals. Now, this topic was off the back of the last governance webinar we did, and we sort of decided to put it together in response to some feedback that came through at the end of the session about a topic somebody was interested in around the impacts of sort of resources and people and that kind of thing when SharePoint starts sort of getting up and running. So in this session we'll shine a spotlight on the support for your organization's sort of information infrastructure, and in particular the role of the IT service desk as an important point for operational and system assurance, but also as its role as an important sort of early detection system for identifying the opportunities for business efficiencies and value. So in this session I hope to cover off for you the problem, which is that SharePoint is a new class of system. You know, it's a new class of IT platform. It's not unique in that sense, but it's definitely a game changer in the world of platforms, and those come with new challenges in terms of using them, and what's an issue and what's a modification and what's an innovation. We'll look at the opportunity that it actually presents us, so and why there is a need to think differently about the service desk and the support structure in general, really, and how it can be organised and recognised as a key part of managing IT demand. And then we'll look at we'll wrap up with some next steps and look at a transition pathway from how to go about assessing a service desk and suggest some initiatives to help respond to what we call the demand side of the equation. So and we'll touch on what that demand means in subsequent slides. So SharePoint changes the game for support. It falls into that next generation of or class of IT platform. We're not providing support for just a product anymore. Instead, it's the services that have been created, that you've created on top of SharePoint in order to meet your business needs. So just to revisit that point about the significant difference between a product and a platform, we'll just clarify that by saying that platforms are designed with more general and flexible concepts in mind, where conversely products are defined as things, or historically products weren't very flexible and weren't very adaptable. If we think of Exchange, for example, it's an email system. It does a defined set of things. Historically, products were about new business initiatives needed new products. They needed new choices of technology. Instead of to shop around and find yourself an application for a specific task that you wanted to solve in your business. And historically, BAs and architects and developers worked in a largely isolated fashion before handing the solution to the service desk and with defined training manuals and reference guides and sort of in a traditional handover ceremony, I suppose. So service desks have a new challenge when it comes to SharePoint, and a big part of that is defining, when supporting these things on SharePoint, it's what is an issue, what is a modification, what is a change, and what is an innovation when someone comes up with an idea, and how do you handle that? And when responding to all these types of requests, we need to be thinking about it in terms of what services that we've charged SharePoint with providing to the business. So just to recap here, for those of you who haven't seen the previous webinar, the key point was that SharePoint, the idea of perceiving SharePoint as one giant service is unmanageable for an organization. So one plan or one service level agreement or one set of rules cannot adequately deliver effectively to all the purposes that SharePoint is put to within an organization. So this concept of splitting things up into services, as we covered in the last webinar, is about looking at SharePoint as this collection of kind of contexts or services, as we call the top of SharePoint as a layer. So we'll take that concept a bit further today in terms of how do we support these kinds of initiatives and services. So most, I think just to look at the current state of support or traditional state of support, most governance planning tends to recognise that there will be problems and issues, and there will be a need to support, and there will need to be support given to help the business overcome these. They also recognise that there will be new ideas and new initiatives or improvements, things that need to be done to improve on what is already provided to the business. Roles and responsibility for oversight and who deals with these two categories are in most cases defined and clearly established, and we tend to mark these up in our governance plans, as a lot of us have tried and attempted and probably doing so now. But what is not fully recognised or explored is the nature by which the changes and these improvements or these ideas, where they come from. So it's in this space that where opportunities are lost or not fully realised. They're the type of opportunities that aren't necessarily clear-cut break fixes, such as an issue on the left-hand side of the screen there. That an issue might be, server's down, I see an error page. Those sorts of things are your clear-cut break fixes. Or on the other hand, you have those grand initiatives for improvement, such as, let's upgrade the 2010 platform to 2010, or let's deploy Project Web Access and get it interfacing with our SharePoint environment. So we're talking about things that aren't as clear-cut and not as grand in terms of the improvements. And these sorts of ideas and opportunities and issues and problems, they happen in that day-to-day business activity realm. And you might even consider this sort of business activity kind of area, or this context, is that this is where the fuel for continuous improvement and innovation really does come from. If you're looking at sort of trying to improve your SharePoint platform and initiatives, on top of your SharePoint platform. So as an example of improvements that arise rather than sort of storm onto the scene are numerous, and this is because we're dealing with a platform that is flexible and versatile. For example, a user is toiling with what on the surface seems to be a simple list configuration, and needs help and calls the help desk. And during that process of understanding, it becomes apparent that the sort of a case management list that the group is wrestling with is a pattern that others want as well within the business. And so with some related list lookup views and some assistance in reworking what is there at the moment, a simple but repeatable pattern could be offered for other areas of the business. So what has happened here is that, say, a good idea has arisen from a very simple support call. It was no big idea or change that took the business case route, or a big sort of song and dance was made about it to get it out there to the business, but it's come from within the business. So it's sort of a bottom-up improvement, so to speak. In this sort of situation, though, this kind of elevation of sort of a request from support to being something that can be pushed out to the business and utilised will involve a different pattern of resolution. It's one of increased inquiry. There's more discussion that's needed to uncover the reasons for why the support calls are arisen. There's more sort of dialogue with the business that's required in order to sort of take something that someone's come up with or wanted and then actually push that out to the wider business. So it's got to be treated much differently to a standard support event. And of course, this will have an impact in terms of time and resources. And so we can already see here where the support model is starting to say, well, where does that fit in? How does a sort of a traditional break-fix model help? How do we change that to sort of allow things to be very innovative and innovation-centric? The other type of opportunity, and I call it an opportunity, is the issues. And the other type of this other type of lost opportunity is not as glamorous as the new idea kind of value chain, but it's just as valuable. And we're not talking about break-fix issues in this context. And I want to introduce a different style of issue, I guess, different category of issue. And it's one that is related to remaining on course or sticking to the plan, which a lot of governance plans talk about. We talk about managing and maintaining compliance to our IA patterns and things like that. So these are the kind of issues I'm sort of talking about here, is the ones that relate to sticking to the plan and staying on course. And for example, I'll try and paint a bit of a picture here of a potential example here. Is the support channel takes a phone call from a user working in their own team collaboration site, and they ask for the creation of some fields in order to make a custom content type for a type of contact list. Now this is a really easy one for support. This is fantastic. This is a nice one. We can do this. And closing this one off would really help the support test metrics. However, on further inquiry, it becomes apparent that the requester is sort of tired of outdated lists provided to them by whoever manages the customer data, and they've decided to take it upon themselves to manage that within their own team. Now, even though there is a CRM system for the business, so that new contact content type that could be quite happily met by a small change by someone in the support desk is effectively, could be contributing to what is known as a sort of shadow CRM system, or another metaphor that is an under-the-desk system. So the problem here is not one of support for SharePoint. In fact, servicing this as a SharePoint support call would in this situation be the wrong thing to do. Situations like this highlight the importance of the process of inquiry and the need to understand what SharePoint is and is not to be used for. I guess, just because it's possible, so just because you can do something in SharePoint, make it a wee CRM system, doesn't mean one should. And that the situation points to that challenge of keeping to the plan. And in this case, the impact, if we were to go and help service this call in just a break-fix type of approach, we could actually compromise two systems, and that is, one is the integrity of the CRM system, and the other one of the team collaboration service. So when I say the integrity, I think we compromise the purpose of those systems and what they're designed to do. In the context of the CRM system, it might be that the CRM systems usually are supposed to be an organization-wide type central management of customer data. But if we're then having little lists crop up in SharePoint, we're starting to dilute the effectiveness of that CRM system and probably the overall marketing tactic for the strategy for the company. So the solution lies in being able to find out what that problem is and then elevating it to the right people. And in this case, the solution here might be to give a level of access to CRM for people and training them on how to generate the contact lists, or perhaps automatically providing them with them every second day or something like that. Now you might say, so what? It's not IT's problem. The teams can do what they like with their sites. We're just the service provider. Okay, and that's a fair enough assumption, and that's we see a lot of that in discussions with organisations. But it's a fine line until something happens to their team site, to that user's team site, and that simple contacts list has now evolved to the equivalent of a CRM system that the team cannot do without. Now the flow-on effect is that service level agreement, or that expectation for support, is now out of alignment with that real-world use of the team's collaboration site. So in the event of, say, an outage or some downtime, we see sort of a reactive pressure on IT and the business in general to rush around and cut corners trying to solve a problem all around the use of an IT, of a SharePoint sort of collaboration site, and a use that it wasn't intended for, and we see those sort of patterns starting to emerge. So sort of saying, yeah, it's not my problem is kind of a little bit sort of dismissive, because ultimately if the systems do change and adapt and become sort of systems within systems without anyone knowing about them, the repercussions can be wider than most service level agreements can sort of cater for or be in control of. So the changing nature of the service desk or support structure. So the types of business and IT interactions I've touched on are now sort of common. We do hear of these instances a lot. And it's widely recognized across the industry that both the technology and customer base is changing. And if organizations don't position their modern day service desk to adapt, then the value that IT offer to the business will rapidly diminish. To respond to service requests that relate to issues, improvements, and staying on course or innovating, we need to recognize some of the key patterns evolving in that service desk, service structure domain. So we can look at several aspects there on the left and how they map to the existing, a lot of the existing structures that are in support structures that are in place today, and we look at the comparative to the next generation, or where generally the world's kind of sort of heading, or the industry's heading in managing IT. So if we look at the org structure, traditionally, a support desk is a team within IT. Next generation, we start to see the integration of those teams into the business. In terms of interaction, manual processes and procedures, potentially just the phone call for support desk and an email box, whereas automated processes and procedures could be more around automated sort of self-service of IT reset, password resets, that kind of thing. Scope, existing sort of application support. The next generation is that information service support. So this little the scope line here sort of calls right back to that the difference between the product and the platform. So it's going to be more about, we're moving more and more to a sort of a context-based service around platforms, rather than saying it's a problem with that specific product or application. Relationship model, customer service aligned, is our traditional support structure, so sort of client-vendor response. Whereas in the next generation, we will see more customer relationship, or leading of customer relationship from the support idea, or specific people within support that are charged with going to the business and almost predicting the things that they'll be needing to do, rather than waiting for the issues and the challenges to happen. Communication, broad communication pattern at the moment. In the next generation, we're likely to see targeted communications. We are seeing targeted communications to specific areas of the business related to specific information services that SharePoint's being put to task for. In terms of technology, there we go, product, and of course the next generation, we're seeing platform, cloud-based system, and a brand new acronym that we all love to put in our acronym stores is the BYOD, or bring your own device. So a lot of you will probably use your phones, things like that at work now, tie them into your IT network. So a lot of that bring your own device stuff is starting to change the game somewhat. Won't talk about that much today, but it definitely is a webinar topic, I think, or a series of them, or even a conference going forward. Okay, so in short, simple terms, the changing service desk landscape can be articulated in a very simple concept that is about supply and demand. So historically, most operational support structures focused on this main goal, and that is maintaining a steady state for the environment within which the IT services exist. Okay, so traditionally the main goals are, ensuring that IT services are available. All right, that's all right, it's a given. Ensuring that IT services are monitored to provide real-time, observation of health and conditions, so that we can handle the problems efficiently and quickly. And also ensuring that IT services are restored quickly and effectively. So those sort of main goals are typically brought right across a lot of the traditional structures, and they really mainly concern themselves predominantly with addressing issues that arise during the normal use of an IT service, or managing problems to sort of provide that root cause analysis and stop it happening again. So this is that sort of supply side of the equation. So and it can be broadly said that traditional service desk models aren't totally geared for identifying opportunities, new areas of value, etc. So the other side of the equation is demand. So part of your plan for success is ensuring compliance to the information architecture and improving the use and capability of your SharePoint-based services. And it's important to recognize the role of the service desk as a very important point or opportunity for really meeting that demand right at the front gate. Really being a first port of call for the business, because the business doesn't actually sometimes know what they need. So they're actually coming to you, coming to the support desk and asking for something that's a problem to them. But really, what they could be asking for is actually a brand new initiative that could be that's designed to put value back into the business. So this is why support is a really interesting, a very, very interesting point in the business now. And sort of to have that governance strategy is all very well, but implementing it is that strategy, that governance strategy is key. You know, we need to recognise that front service desk or that front line as a function, and we need to make sure that we align it to the organisation's goals for the SharePoint governance, its operation and initiatives. And it's the only real way that it's going to be instrumental to the long-term sustainable success. So, you know, to put that simply, if your governance plan is all about maintaining SharePoint and then growing it and growing its capability, then it's only fair to say that, well, are our support structures ready to do that too? Yep. So with the correct alignment, the service desk has a better chance of balancing those efforts to meet supply that maintains value and also be instrumental in managing demand that adds value. So we take a step back. Well, I just wanted to sort of pull back from some of that detail there, and we'll just take a look at how the service model fits with that typical support structure. So the following diagram here on the left there just shows how information services are conceptualized. For those that sat in on the last session, we talked about right at the bottom here, we talked about on the left there, we talked about resources which combine to make technical services. The technical services combine to create business services or customer-facing services. And then, of course, the user interaction is what they get as a result of interacting with that service. So I've got here a project collaboration service, and this is the project A, the project site that someone's using to work on their project. The little roles and responsibilities I've just dotted on here. There's a business owner for that project collaboration service. There's a service owner for it as well. From a technical perspective, a business representative interface, which could be an extension of your support structure, support team. Depends on how your company arranges its support desk. Then you might have, your IT department, you might have people wearing different hats at different times. And in fact, I'd love a good hat icon to use in these diagrams, because they're sometimes looking at these little people on these diagrams makes you think that you need an individual for every single job, but quite often we see that these are roles. These are we interpret these as roles that people perform within IT in the IT function. So on the right there, we've got the support structure. We've sort of conceptualized the service desk there. We've the applications team, the systems administrators, external parties, such as ourselves, like OBS. We would consider ourselves external, an external party that's used to help customers. And then, of course, right at the back here, we have service delivery management. Now, there's nothing really new about this structure. This is very, very traditional and very, very standardized. And I think what I want you to take away from this big picture is that the roles are important, but what's missing here is, and what is missing from a lot of these kind of diagrams, is where those key interactions take place. And in this example here, if we look at this concept a little closer, you know, this big orange rugby ball shaped thing here is the zone that we're concerned with, and this is this zone where a lot of the interaction and change is happening in business service support interactions. So this is where things are different. So depending on the request, the activity in this zone can be very, very different in terms of how it's serviced with SharePoint-based inquiries and requests. And the changes to delivering that support and responding to demand affect resource levels, budget, of course, time, and also expectation management. So the change isn't necessarily about increasing the levels of these variables. So what I want to make really clear here is I'm not saying go out and employ more staff, okay? Or don't go and send everyone to a SharePoint admin and dev course and make everyone a guru. I mean, those are okay things to do, and we do encourage, you know, deepening knowledge within the platforms you buy. But the challenge here lies in revising the interactions and expectations and agreements for interacting with the business. So that orange area there is really where the work needs to be done and ironed out and understood, that the impacts are going to be quite quite different with these new platform technologies. So before completely overturning your existing model, which we wouldn't recommend as your first step to transforming your support structure, there are a number of things that those in charge of SharePoint service delivery, or if you're an influencer there, there are a number of things that you can do before moving in a new direction. And we probably, explore these first because, when in doubt, people often reorganize the org chart, and it's a symptom of sort of trying to deal with change, because we can see people moving around a structure, or we can see ourselves what looks to be us solving the problem because we're changing a structure. But what we want to do is just test the waters, and we want to experience the impacts about what change is going to bring to us. And so in the next slide here, we've just got a couple of steps that we would I like to talk about with clients in terms of getting ready for change and assessing the service desk side of things. So the first bit of recommendation is to connect with that service desk. So we really want to sort of connect with the service desk as early as possible. If you're embarking on SharePoint now, then start involving them now. Start involving them in your discussions and their awareness. Make them part of your governance team. Make someone from that service desk, there at every meeting. I know it's going to be a hard task for some people to sort of campaign for that time, but it is very beneficial to have that person informed from as early as possible. If you already have SharePoint and you're already supporting, take a look at whether or not the service structure is involved now. And if they aren't, then maybe reassess that and think about, have we got enough involvement? Are we connected enough to the support structure that's there for us to drive SharePoint value? Business value via SharePoint. Know your audience. Understand what exposure that the business has had to the technology. So SharePoint's been around for quite a while now. People have skills. Some of I was with a customer the other day and talking to some business people, and there was a new starter, and the person that had arrived into the business had been using SharePoint extensively in their business role in another company. And so SharePoint is becoming almost a little bit like we're seeing the journey, like years ago when people didn't have Microsoft Word skills, and someone would come on board and they've got Word skills. So we're starting to see SharePoint becoming that same sort of skill base that people have and capability. Identify what level of training that your existing users, what have they received? What do they know? Because that's important to figure out what can they be held responsible for in terms of what they should be able to do, what they shouldn't be able to do, and what they should be coming to your support desk for. So with those two sort of first kind of line, sort of readiness kind of tasks, we'll then go into understanding what services are provided by the SharePoint information infrastructure. So this was the subject of the previous webinar, where we talked about not looking at SharePoint as a giant box and really understanding, okay, how is it segmented and what is it really being used for from a business point of view. And so why this is important is that those responsible for that support really need to come to grips with the purpose of the different areas of the environment. Really be able to make sure that it's clear what the use for each service is and what they're, and almost most importantly, what they are not supposed to be used for. And I think, and I'd recommend that performing that bit of service definition for a particular area is really important. So, for example, just a quick example here, a project collaboration service. You might have a couple of objectives there for that service to say it's used for projects that have that are defined as X. They have start and finish dates, and at the end of those dates, those project sites are retired and the information is archived. What the project collaboration service is not for is for ad hoc wikis and knowledge bases or team use, and instead direct those users to the other areas of SharePoint where those types of activities are supposed to be performed. So knowing what not to use a particular area for of your SharePoint environment for is really, really important, and probably the most important thing for the support people. Know the appropriate way to deal with requests. So ensure that support desks has lines for escalation from the business governance angle and the technical angle. So a lot of the time we all know about escalation, and basically escalation is based on if it's tough, escalate it. If they can't do it, escalate it again. If it's really specific security environment, better escalate it. But we're talking here about escalating things that might be important from a business perspective as well. And I think if I refer back to that example where somebody wanted to have a custom content type for a contacts list that was going to become their own little micro CRM, that's the sort of thing you need to be able to escalate and sort of say, is this the right thing we should be doing? If you don't have the knowledge, then structure a process by which you can set an expectation to users that you'll get an answer within a few days when responding to their requests. Whereby what you could do, and we do this for a number of our customers, is they'll queue up a number of issues and requests that may or may not be issues, and they'll have someone like ourselves come in maybe once a week or twice in a month perhaps, and we'll help work through those issues. And what we do is we tend to recommend next steps. We give you things to consider. We might help update your policies and governance. Maybe we run a few workshops to clarify a few things. So the idea is that through those face-to-face sort of sessions and sort of side-by-side sessions, they sort of also serve as a form of knowledge transfer for your staff, and they build on your internal capability with SharePoint. So slowly, over months, you're actually becoming, you're actually getting the knowledge to be more responsive and make those decisions yourself. So service desk readiness, and sort of we mentioned about understanding what the requests are, and I just want to spend a bit more time on this point, is that the types of questions and assistance are going to become broader, and they will require a different level of dialogue with the business. The type of things that we see. So I'll just explain this this diagram here. We have our service desk way down there, backing up the sitting there behind all the business services. And then our users out the front there, and our business people operating and doing their daily thing. The types of requests you'll definitely get will be, I can't find something. The content isn't there. The job search page is gone. I'm missing stuff. The other ones you get, of course, are how do I's, and they're not uncommon to any of the other support requests you get. But with SharePoint, you get things like how do I set up an alert? How do I use the search? How do I kind of create a column and things like that. Now, depending on the nature of that how do I, it may be that they're actually asking for, or they're hinting at the need for more training within their department. Maybe they never got training. Maybe that's, maybe there's things they're trying to do, like set up alerts, that are actually not quite right. Maybe it's the wrong way to do something. So the how do I questions can often be really quite interesting. They often point to things people are trying to do to kind of self-innovate on their day-to-day jobs. You'd also get questions, of course, around it's broken. I can't do something due to my permissions. And of course, those ones are interesting as well, because maybe the permissions are actually configured in such a way where they shouldn't be doing something. So this is an example here where you really got to understand, what the purpose of that SharePoint service is for, and what that person should be allowed to do. And the business representative for each of these services is key here, and they almost become someone that is going to need to liaise with the service desk probably more often to understand, and respond to sort of confirmations on questions regarding specific areas if they're not able to be communicated inside a business service definition. You get the I need something new. And these ones are interesting because they're very indicative of the platform idea. You don't pick up the phone and ask for something new in exchange, but you could quite easily pick up the phone and say, I need a new site for working on the charity initiative within our company social department. And so, you know, that's a very valid request, and that's indicative of something where someone needs something new. So, you know, how is that managed? You know, so how is that routed for help and for to be serviced? It probably falls outside of a support desk's remit, because it's not necessarily essential, but it's got to go somewhere. It's got to be routed somewhere for people to respond to that business request. We talked about it being broken earlier on. Typical sort of questions and expected types of things that support will get. And you know, and a little bit akin to something new is I need something changed or reconfigured or to get an extension of existing capability. And that's a really good example there of something that's often really a symptom of a wider kind of ambition for what they're trying to do. So to wildly sort of service that without thinking of the repercussions could fall into the trap of the closet the CRM, shadow CRM application we talked about earlier. And of course, that service desk is no longer an isolated island of IT wonderful, Superman support. It needs that governance team aspect present within it, and it needs those business stakeholders input as well into helping understand what people are trying to do with the systems and information services. And those the little arrows there that loop around that service desk really just embody that it's really important to test what the government plan states. I mean, we often say that governance teams are formulated, and there will be people that meet monthly and talk about things and prioritize things, but we can write those in plans, but we really need to test those little processes out, because often all of these initiatives are great ideas to help support systems, but they really need to be proven. So the requests, you know, the right requests need to be evaluated by the right people and really involve the users, such as the subject matter experts. And this is perhaps one of the most important part of many change to the business is, you know, figure this process out and really just put it to work, put it to action it, practice it almost, and give it a test run and tailor it to your business's needs. The last few steps here are about reflecting on the requests you get. So I find this is a really useful thing for people to do. It's an eye-opener. It's a little bit like looking at web stats, but, you know, pull together all the lists of requests that you get maybe every 2 weeks. I think it's a decent enough time. Classify the requests that you get. Look for the trends. You know, what do they tell you? What do they mean? What do they tell you about people's use of the system? And what are they telling you about the support you're delivering? You know, is it in line with the services idea and the broader governance plan layout? And these things, I love looking at these because they're a really good metronome for how the business is ticking. The next, second to last point there is communicate. Visibly change perception through communications to the business. Now, this is something that IT departments they're not really used to doing, is doing a lot of communications. But I think it's really important to tell people about the changes that you as a team are about to face and that IT faces, because everyone changes, every division changes, and so does IT. But this is a change that's going to involve the business as well. So look for opportunities to extend your presence into the business where you might not have ventured before. And I don't mean huge things, I just mean like small things. So if you know training sessions are kicking off, perhaps have a presence there to introduce that training session before the trainer gets going with that session. It's really small, but it starts to show that connection between what the people are doing and where support is, and they start seeing a different kind of interaction between traditional support and the business. You know, support are going to need to start asking questions and working with people in a way they haven't maybe done so before. So finding those ways to become visible within the business and what might seem non-traditional settings does support that relationship building and support that sort of inevitable change that's coming in response to demand. Obtain support for support. So what does this mean? This is about ensuring the change is understood and recognized by executive sponsors. If you can, have them communicate on your behalf. not all the time, just once every now and again, see if you can get them to sort of recognise and maybe back your changes and your efforts, and help celebrate some of the wins you have. No matter how small you think they are, it's important to talk about the successes you have on the road to sort of learning to respond differently to the business. Raising that awareness, can really buy patience from the business throughout any changes ahead. You'd be very, very surprised how powerful that is. And lastly, talk to us. We've helped a number of organisations with various aspects of these changes. Now, we don't just walk in there and tell you what to do. We can, but we don't like doing that. Our preference is to work in conjunction with the teams that are handling the change. So some organisations have change management. Some people have people that are handling that for them in the technical team, or just if they don't have a big change presence, we find other ways to help, identify the areas that may need to be modified, and we can help advise and upskill and that kind of thing. So everyone's different, and I think this is really why it's quite hard for me to explain what we would offer here. But we do offer that sort of the idea that every organisation is very different, and we can certainly tailor people's sort of tailor services to people's needs when we're talking about these sensitive areas of change. So in summary there, hopefully we've been able to cover that, that outline, that problem, that SharePoint is that new class of IT platform. The service desks have a new challenge in defining what's an issue, what's a modification, what's innovation, and how to help the businesses and themselves. There is a need to think differently about service and support, but it's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to sort of organise and learn to sort of change the way that requests are processed, and almost in a way that actually starts helping the business manage the demand for IT and the demand for more value on existing platforms. And then we looked at, hopefully I covered those not in a not too fast way, the next steps on how to approach the changing landscape and begin to understand what it means to balance the demand side of the equation. Okay, so I've gone a little bit over time, so if you stuck around, thank you so much. Feel free to contact me directly or via the general inquiries email address that we have on here. Our intention is to publish more webinars on the governance, and my intention is to do a little bit differently. As I said earlier on, the session was structured based on feedback from the last one, and as a result of comments and things like that. So always up for hearing what areas of that you're most interested in, and if I can accommodate creating a session on that, I'll do my very best. Our next webinar actually coming up will be one of our technical series that will be presented by Mark Rhodes, one of our infrastructure specialists and MVPs, which is great. Mark's fantastic and very, very enthusiastic, and he'll be covering the SharePoint 2010 performance and health monitoring. So in some ways it's kind of one of the technical aspects of this sort of topic about how to support things and why it's a little bit different. So it should dovetail quite nicely into this session as well. It's on Tuesday the 31st of January. For those of you who have business and watching, sometimes these sessions are very technical, but I think they are worth jumping in and having a little listen to, because it does sort of broaden your understanding about the technical challenges that are on offer, and maybe you'll learn enough to be able to pass on the webinar to someone else within the business who might be concerned with performance and health monitoring. Mark's lovely and he won't bite, so do tune in. Okay, and with that, I pretty much wrap it up now. I've got time for some questions, of course, so I can hang around and answer those for 10 or so minutes. But yeah, once again, thanks very much, and look forward to seeing you online again in the future. For those of you who are wondering how to ask questions, there's should be a little questions box on your little kind of GoToWebinar interface there. And alternatively, if you'd like to, if you prefer to send the questions, there's a box at the end of the close of the presentation which will allow you to put some feedback in there and maybe, like I said, submit some ideas for the next one, and if you'd like to do so. Okay, so we had someone ask, is the audio and PowerPoint going to be posted somewhere after this webinar? What we do is we record them actually, and we actually publish them on the website. So hopefully the recording goes to plan and we'll get it up there. But if it doesn't, we re-record them and we make sure that they're all up there. So yeah, we should be you'll be able to find that on the OBS website. Great. Okay. Well, have a great day, everyone, and thanks for attending. And we'll see you online again in the future. Cheers.